Section 24 of Pirates of Panama, The Buccaneers of America, by A.O. Exquemelin, translated by G.A. Williams. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Vernon Young. Chapter 15. Captain Morgan leaves Hispaniola and goes to St. Catherine's, which he takes. Captain Morgan and his companions weighed anchor from the Cape of Tiburon, December 16, 1670, 4 days after they arrived in sight of St. Catherine's, now in possession of the Spaniards again, as I said before, to which they commonly banish the manufactures of Spanish dominions in the West Indies. Here are huge quantities of pigeons at certain seasons. It is watered by 4 rivulets, whereof 2 are always dry in summer. Here is no trade or commerce exercised by the inhabitants, neither do they plant more fruit than what are necessary for human life, though the country would make very good plantations of tobacco of considerable profit, were it cultivated. As soon as Captain Morgan came near the island with his fleet, he sent one of his best sailing vessels to view the entry of the river, and see if any other ships were there, who might hinder him from landing, as also fearing lest they should give intelligence of his arrival to the inhabitants, and prevent his designs. Next day, before sunrise, all the fleet anchored near the island in a bay called Grande. On this bay the Spaniards had built a battery, mounted with 4 pieces of cannon. Captain Morgan landed about 1,000 men in divers squadrons, marching through the woods, though they had no other guides than a few of his own men, who had been there before under Mansfield. The same day they came to a place where the governor sometimes resided. Here they found a battery called the Platform, but nobody in it, the Spaniards having retired to the lesser island, which, as I said before, is so near the great one, that a short bridge only may conjoin them. This lesser island was so well fortified with forts and batteries around it, as might seem impregnable. Hereupon, as soon as the Spaniards perceived the pirates' approach, they fired on them so furiously that they could advance nothing that day, but were content to retreat and take up their rest in the open fields, which was not strange to these people, being sufficiently used to such kinds of repose. What most afflicted them was hunger, having not eaten anything that whole day. About midnight it rained so hard that they had much ado to bear it, the greatest part of them having no other clothes than a pair of seaman's trousers or breeches, and a shirt, without shoes or stockings. In this great extremity they pulled down a few thatched houses to make fires withal. In a word, they were in such a condition that 100 men, indifferently well armed, might easily that night have torn them all in pieces. Next morning, about break of day, the rain ceased, and they dried their arms and marched on. But soon after it rained afresh, rather harder than before, as if the skies were melted into waters, which kept them from advancing towards the fort, whence the Spaniards continually fired at them. The pirates were now reduced to great affliction and danger, through the hardness of the weather, their own nakedness, and great hunger. For small relief hereof, they found in fields an old horse, lean and full of scabs and blotches, with galled back and sides. This they instantly killed and flayed, and divided in small pieces among themselves, as far as it would reach. For many could not get a morsel, which they roasted and devoured without salt or bread, more like ravenous wolves than men. The rain not ceasing, Captain Morgan perceived their minds to relent, hearing many of them say they would return on board. Among these fatigues of mind and body, he felt convenient to use some sudden remedy. To this effect, he commanded a canoe to be rigged in haste, and colours of truce to be hanged out. This canoe he sent to the Spanish governor, with this message, that if within a few hours he delivered not himself and all his men into his hands, he did by that messenger swear to him, and all those that were in his company, he would most certainly put them to the sword, without granting quarter to any. In the afternoon the canoe returned with this answer, that the governor desired 2 hours' time to deliberate with his officers about it, which being past, he would give his positive answer. The time being lapsed, the governor sent 2 canoes with white colours, and 2 persons to treat with Captain Morgan, but before they landed, they demanded of the pirates 2 persons as hostages. These were readily granted by Captain Morgan, who delivered 2 of the captains for a pledge of the security required. With this, the Spaniards propounded to Captain Morgan that the governor, in the full assembly, had resolved to deliver up the island, not being provided with sufficient forces to defend it against such an armada. But withal, he desired Captain Morgan would be pleased to use a certain stratagem of war for the better saving of his own credit and the reputation of his officers both abroad and at home, which should be as follows: that Captain Morgan would come with his troops by night to a bridge that joined the lesser island to great one, and there attack the fort of St. Jerome, that at the same time all his fleet would draw near the castle of Santa Teresa and attack it by land, landing, and meanwhile more troops near the battery of St. Matthew, that these troops being newly landed should by these means intercept the governor as he endeavoured to pass to St. Jerome's fort, and then take him prisoner, using the formality as if they forced him to leave the castle, and that he would lead the English into it under colour of being his own troops. That on both sides there should be continual firing, but without bullets, or at least into the air, so that no side might be hurt. That thus having obtained 2 such considerable forts, the chiefest of the isle, he need not take care for the rest, which must fall of course into his hands. These propositions were granted by Captain Morgan, on condition they should see them faithfully observed, otherwise they should be used with the utmost rigour. This they promised to do, and took their leave, to give account of their negotiation to the governor. Presently after, Captain Morgan commanded the whole fleet to enter the port, and his men to be ready to assault that night the castle of St. Jerome. Thus the false battle began, with incessant firing from both the castles against the ships, but without bullets, as was agreed. Then the pirates landed, and assaulted by night the lesser island, which they took, as also both fortresses, forcing the Spaniards and appearance to fly to church. For this assault, Captain Morgan sent word to the governor that he should keep all his men together in a body, otherwise if the pirates met any struggling Spaniards in the streets, they should certainly shoot them. This island being taken by this unusual stratagem, and all things put in order, the pirates made a new war against poultry, cattle, and all sorts of victuals they could find, for some days scarce thinking of anything else than to kill, roast, and eat, and make what good cheer they could. If wood was wanting, they pulled down the houses and made fires with the timber, as had been done before in the field. Next day they numbered all the prisoners they had taken upon the island, which were found to be all 459 persons, men, women, and children, each permitted to be seen, 190 soldiers of the garrison, 40 inhabitants, were married, 43 children, 34 slaves belonging to the king, with 8 children, 8 banditti, 39 negroes belonging to private persons, with 27 female blacks, and 34 children. The pirates disarmed all the Spaniards, and sent them out immediately to plantations to seek for provisions, leaving the women in the church to exercise their devotions. Soon after they reviewed the whole island, and all the fortresses thereof, which they found to be 9 in all, as permitted to be seen the fort of St. Jerome, next the bridge, had 8 great guns of 12, 6, and 8 pounds carriage, with 6 parts of musket, every part containing 10 muskets. Here they found still 60 muskets, with sufficient powder and other ammunition. The second fortress, called St. Matthew, had 3 guns, of 8 pounds each. The third, and chiefest, named Santa Teresa, had 20 great guns of 18, 12, 8, and 6 pounds, with 10 pipes of muskets, like those before, and 90 muskets remaining, besides other ammunition. This castle was built with stone and mortar, with very thick walls, and a large ditch round it, 20 feet deep, which, though it was dry, yet was very hard to get over. Here was no entry, but through one door, to the middle of the castle. Within it was a mount, almost inaccessible, with 4 pieces of cannon at the top, whence they could shoot directly into the port, On the seaside it was impregnable by reason of the rocks round it, and the sea beating furiously upon them. The land it was so commodiously seated on a mountain, as there was no access to it but by a path 3 or 4 feet broad. The fourth fortress was named St. Augustine, having 3 guns of 8 and 6 pounds. The fifth, named La Plataforma de la Concepcion, only had 2 guns of 8 pounds. The sixth, by name St. Salvador, had likewise no more than 2 guns. The seventh, called Plataforma de los Artilleros, had also 2 guns. The eighth, called Santa Cruz, had 3 guns. The ninth, called St. Joseph's Fort, had 6 guns, of 12 and 8 pounds, besides 2 pipes of muskets, and sufficient ammunition. In the storehouses were above 30,000 pounds of powder, with all other ammunition, which was carried by the pirates on board. All the guns were stopped and nailed, and the fortresses demolished, except that of St. Jerome, where the pirates kept guard and resistance. Captain Morgan inquired for any banditti from Panama or Portobello, and 3 were brought him, who pretended to be very expert in the avenues of those parts. He asked them to be his guides, and show him the securest ways to Panama, which, if they performed, he promised them equal shares in plunder of the expedition, and their liberty when they arrived in Jamaica. These propositions the banditti readily accepted, promising to serve him very faithfully, especially one of the 3, who was the greatest rogue, thief, and assassin among them, who had deserved rather to be broken alive on the wheel than punished with serving in the garrison. This wicked fellow had a great ascendant over the other 2, and domineered over them as he pleased, they not daring to disobey his orders. Captain Morgan commanded 4 ships and 1 boat to be equipped, and provided with necessaries to go and take the castle of Chagres, on the river of that name. Neither would he go himself with his whole fleet, lest the Spaniards should be jealous of his farther design on Panama. In these vessels he embarked 400 men to put in execution these his orders. Meanwhile, himself remained in St. Catherine's with the rest of the fleet, expecting to hear of their success. End of chapter 15.